Mangwanani Mwalelepo Vukenjani, Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show that remains your portal into Africa's most potent stories. We'll be joined by talent Gore as we get into the show. She's going to be giving us some significant highlights from Zimbabwe, including the return of the Harare International Festival of the Arts, President Duma Boko's visit to Zimbabwe, which culminated in discussions over passport-free travel between Botswana and Zimbabwe, as well as South African prosecutors seeking a 2-year jail term for Bellarmine Mugabe, the son of Robert Gabriel Mugabe, who is currently on trial in the country. However, prior to all of that, these are some of the stories we'll be looking at from broader Africa. South Africa pulls back AI policy after discovery of fabricated references. Burundi's Ndayishimiye confirmed as ruling party candidate for 2027 vote. Tunisian journalist arrested following criticism of judiciary. Congo establishes $100 million mining guard to protect sector. Kenya's Sabastian Sawe breaks 2-hour barrier at London Marathon. DSTV 285, GOTV 25, OneUp2.com, Network Media Hub, and NTVAFRIKA.MY.NA. Those are the spaces that you can watch the show. My name is Ashwin Bedi. Top stories shortly. Now, South Africa has withdrawn its first draft AI national policy after it was found to contain fictitious sources in its reference list that appeared to have been generated by artificial intelligence. Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies Solly Malatsi said the most plausible explanation was that AI-generated citations had been included without proper verification, adding that this should not have happened. He stated that the failure was not merely technical but had compromised the integrity and credibility of the draft policy. The policy had been unveiled earlier this month for public comment ahead of finalization and aimed to position South Africa as a continental leader in AI innovation while addressing ethical, social, and economic challenges. It proposed the creation of institutions such as a National AI Commission, an AI Ethics Board, and an AI Regulatory Authority, alongside incentives including tax breaks, grants, and subsidies to encourage private sector collaboration. Malatsi said there would be consequences for those responsible for drafting the document and did not indicate when a revised version would be released, adding that the lapse showed the importance of vigilant human oversight. An AI document withdrawn because of the use of AI. Let's move over to our next story. Burundian President Evariste Ndayishimiye has been selected as the candidate of his ruling party for the presidential election, expected to take place next year, according to a statement released this week. The CNFDD party confirmed on X that Ndayishimiye would contest a 7-year mandate, though no specific election date has been announced. Ndayishimiye, 57, has led the country since 2020 after taking over following the death of longtime leader Pierre Nkurunziza. Responding on X, he thanked party members for their trust and pledged to continue working with them so that all Burundi benefits in peace. A general and former ruling party head who held various roles under Nkurunziza, he is considered the favorite heading into the vote. He was first elected in May 2020 in polls marked by accusations of fraud and the disqualification of his main opponent. Opposition spokesman Epites Shimirimana said the upcoming election would not meet international standards and criticized Ndayishimiye's record, citing shortages of fuel, foreign currency and basic necessities, while warning that another term would worsen conditions in the country. Now we go back to Tunisia, where earlier in the year we had been highlighting very heavy-handed responses to any form of political dissent, and it seems like that heavy hand has landed on a journalist. Prominent journalist Zied El Heni was detained after publishing an article critical of the judiciary, according to his lawyer, in a move that the journalists' union described as part of a broader crackdown on free speech. Lawyer Nafan Laribi said the arrest was ordered by the public prosecutor, though no immediate statement or details of charges were provided. Rights groups have raised concerns about increasing efforts to silence independent voices since President Kais Saied dissolved the elected parliament in 2021 and began ruling by decree. In 2022, Saied also dissolved the Supreme Judicial Council and dismissed dozens of judges' actions the opposition said undermined judicial independence and placed it under direct instruction. Saied has rejected those claims, saying he fought corruption and that the courts are now independent. The head of the journalists' union, Zied Daba, described Heni's detention as arbitrary and an attempt to intimidate journalists. Critics say Saied's consolidation of power and subsequent decrees have dismantled democratic safeguards, while authorities have pursued journalists, politicians, activists, and businessmen on charges including conspiring against state security, money laundering, as well as corruption. Now, the Democratic Republic of Congo has launched a paramilitary mining guard, which is aimed at securing mining sites and mineral supply chains as it seeks to tackle smuggling, insecurity, and improve investor confidence in the sector. The Mines Inspectorate said the program would be funded through a $100 million budget backed by partnerships with the United States and the United Arab Emirates. The unit will be deployed gradually across mining regions and is expected to grow to more than 20,000 personnel by the end of 2028, with an initial contingent of between 2,500 and 3,000 scheduled to become operational from December 2026 after recruitment and training conducted with the military. Officials said the guard would replace defense forces currently handling mine security and would oversee site protection, escort mineral shipments, and safeguard investments. The initiative comes as Congo, a major producer of cobalt and copper with reserves of lithium, coltan, and gold, faces insecurity in its mineral-rich east linked to a Rwanda-backed rebellion. Now, the biggest news of the weekend, and it's still the biggest news today, Kenya's Sabastian Sawe made history by becoming the first man to run a marathon in under 2 hours in an official race, winning the London Marathon in 1 hour, 59 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, the performance broke the previous world record of 2 hours and 35 split seconds set by Calvin Kiptum. This was in 2023 and marked a milestone long pursued in the sport. Ethiopia's Yomif Kejelcha finished second in 1 hour, 59 minutes and 41 split seconds, while Uganda's Jacob Kipilimo took third. Sawe said he felt strong throughout the race and was excited upon seeing the time at the finish. He credited the support of spectators and reflected on the significance of the achievement. What an incredible, incredible feat there by Sabastian Sawe. Just under 2 hours. Incredible. Those have been the top stories on Africa Good Morning. As promised, shortly we'll be joined by talent Gore, who is in Harare, Zimbabwe, here to deliver the Zimbabwe report. But prior to that, let's have a look at the weather.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises, from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us. Something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative sport tourism.
All right, it's time for us to be joined by Talent Gore. Talent Wamkase.
Mamkase Africa.
Tamuka Hedu. Now, someone who didn't wake up in Zimbabwe or Namibia, but in South Africa is Bellarmine Mugabe, who is currently under trial for the attempted murder of a gentleman who happened to be in the yard that they were living in. However, after plenty discussions, couple of delays, we're still waiting on the verdict. We understand that South African prosecutors, keeping in mind, Bellarmine did admit to a guilty charge. The South African prosecutors are seeking a 2-year jail time for the son of Robert Mugabe.
Yes, prosecutors have asked for a direct imprisonment for Bellarmine Chatunga Mugabe, the son of the late former President Robert Mugabe, as the South African court postponed his sentencing to April 29, which is tomorrow. The state is seeking 12 months direct imprisonment on a charge of pointing a firearm and a further 12 months on a charge of being an illegal immigrant. For his co-accused Tobias Matonoze, who pleaded guilty to a raft of more serious charges, prosecutors are seeking, so sorry about that. Prosecutors are seeking 5 years direct imprisonment for attempted murder, 12 years of possession of an illegal firearm, 12 years of defeating the ends of justice, and a fine for possession of ammunition, and 12 months direct imprisonment for immigration violations. Mugabe pleaded guilty to being in South Africa illegally, pointing a firearm, the latter arising from a separate incident just 2 weeks before his security guard, Sipho Mahlangu, was shot at his Hyde Park home on February 19. The investigating officer told the Alexandra Magistrate Court that Mahlangu has received 250,000 rands in compensation, with a further 150,000 rand still outstanding. The defense countered that other individuals were present at the Hyde Park property at the time, and the gun could have been removed by someone else. The defense was also asked for non-custodial sentences, pointing to the compensation paid to Mahlangu as evidence of accountability, though the prosecution noted the full agreed amount remains unpaid. The matter was postponed to April 29 for sentencing, which is tomorrow. So tomorrow, the whole world would be watching as the Alexandra Magistrate Courts sentence Mugabe and Matonoze. Mugabe pleaded guilty to immigration violations, to being in South Africa illegally, and to pointing a firearm, but his co-accused actually pleaded guilty to attempted murder and immigration charges. So to immigration violations, sorry. So we're just going to be monitoring and see how the magistrate courts are going to sentence the two.
Thank you for that comprehensive update, Talent. Now moving on to your next story. Botswana and Zimbabwe have revived passport-free travel talks.
Yes, this talks actually started when President Masisi was the president of Botswana. So right now, Botswana President Duma Boko and President Emerson Mnangagwa have renewed calls for passport-free travel between their two countries, raising a proposal that was shelved after a fierce backlash from Botswana's parliament in 2023. The two leaders made the remarks on Wednesday as they witnessed the signing of 11 memoranda of understanding, including one on immigration cooperation, during Boko's state visit to Harare last week. President Mnangagwa said the two countries shared more than diplomatic relationship and called for a phased system that would allow citizens to use national identity documents instead of passports, starting with border communities and short-term travel. President Mnangagwa said harmonized immigration systems, one-stop border posts, and digital clearance platforms remained priorities. And President Boko said Botswana was developing a national identity cards that would allow travelers to store their credentials on a smartphone, removing the need to carry a physical document. He said, wherever you go, you can just tap on the go. That is what President Boko said, adding that the technology would need to be compatible on both sides of the border to be effective. President Boko also said that migration between the two countries was natural and should not be treated as a problem. Botswana already has a passport-free travel arrangement with Namibia, which came into effect in February 2023 without controversy. So there is a lot of controversy around Botswana and Zimbabwe having a passport-free travel arrangement. So we're not really sure how the parliament in Botswana, members of parliament in Botswana, are reacting to this news. But like I said before, the talk started in 2023, and back then there was a lot of backlash from the parliament in Botswana. So we're not really sure how they are taking it this time around. So we are hoping that there will be some sort of balance and Zimbabweans can actually have access and we can travel to Botswana without our passports on that arrangement.
Thank you very much, Talent. Now, I'm very excited for your next update because you're talking about the return of the first festival, major festival I performed at as a very young man at the age of 16. At that time, I was doing dance and theater. Of course, now we talk for a living. Harare International Festival of the Arts is back after 8 years.
Yes, the Harare International Festival of the Arts is back after an 8-year hiatus. HIFA will stage its 2026 edition themed up from which is themed up from August 3 to 9 in Harare, and organizers announced this on Saturday, and a lot of people, they are really excited about HIFA's return. The return of the celebrated arts festival, once a fixture on the continental cultural calendar, comes with a broader program of events stretching to 2028 as HIFA seeks to re-establish itself as a year-round arts institution. Dates for the next two editions have already been set. HIFA 2027 runs from April 26 to May 2, and HIFA 2028 from May 1 to 7. HIFA, which was founded in 1999, drew tens of thousands of visitors annually at its peak, showcasing local and international arts across theater, music, dance, and visual arts. Its last edition was held in 2018. So this is some exciting news that are coming in Harare with Haifa coming back. I understand that a lot of people, I was quite young during that age, but during that time, sorry, but a lot of people enjoyed going to Haifa. You'd always find people going to Avondale for Haifa, going to different places. And the organizers would also bring international artists to Zimbabwe to perform at Haifa. So this is great news for those in the arts, culture, industry. This is some exciting news because everyone right now is excited for the return of Haifa.
And all NTV Africa viewers should be excited as well, as we know you talent Gore will be bringing us reports live from Haifa throughout the festival. So we're going to be living through you. Thank you very much for joining us and delivering the Zimbabwe report today, talent.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It's always good having you on Africa Good Morning, and always good having you, our viewers, on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, 1up2.com, NTVAFRIKA.MY.NA, and Network Media Hub on YouTube, as well as NTV Africa on YouTube, keeping in mind that Africa is spelled with a K. We're going to be saying goodbye now and leaving you with the economic indicators. Tomorrow, we are joined by Rorisang Mokgojwe as she delivers the Botswana report. And as always, we do remain your portal into Africa's most potent stories. Swera Zwakanaka.